Hello there, everyone, and a very happy Thursday to you all today. I hope everyone is doing really well. Just gonna flip the screen over here. Hi, Sue. Good to see you. Very nice to see your name pop up as always. And it looks like our Roxanne is ahead of the game usual. She is the magic behind the Altenew badge today. And she is reminding everyone, many of you already know, like Sue and like Cece, hi Cece, that if you share today's live while we are live, you can be in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. So if you share and then post below, let us know how you shared and that you shared, and then the lovely Roxanne will randomly choose someone at the end of today's session. So it's great to see everybody. Hi, Ruby. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Strawberry. Ooh, somebody's called Strawberry. I like that. Serena. You're Sarah too, Strawberry. Well, good name. Good fruit as well. And Belinda is there from the UK. Looks like we've got lots of folks joining us today. Melly says she is from Italy, so buongiorno. It's evening for you as well in Italy. Here in Hamburg, Germany, it's 8:30. We turned back our clocks on Halloween weekend, so last weekend. So we're an hour behind our normal time. So I'll get to bed a little bit earlier tonight, starting at 8:30 instead of 9:30. So today I have a really fun set that I want to share with you. So let me show you. This is the Fresh Bloom layered stamp set. So as you can see, a classic Altenew design with the outline stamp and then the subsequent layering stamps that you see here. So today it's a poppy. It's a big, beautiful poppy. You can see in proportion to my hands, use the right hand here, that it's a nice substantial size. So you can use one as a card focal, but you can definitely fit on multiple blossoms onto a card or of course a tag and so on. So you have the layering options here. You have the leaves down here. And then there are also a couple of sentiments, some small ones. They're really petite. They fit in nicely. Thank you, and let's see, and miss you, and hello. So a really good all-round stamp set. Now, the thing that I love about this, and Altenew does this quite often with their layering stamps, they'll have the outline image, which you then use in combination with all of the layering steps. But you can also easily use this outline stamp on its own. So I'm going to show you a couple of ideas with that too. Okay, so that's just the stamp set itself. Let me show you. This is from the folder that comes inside the package. This is what you can create with it. So you can see, especially here with this blue one, that beautiful blossom. Here's the leaf. It's the same leaf, just angled differently. And then here is a little accent, kind of a vase filler style of design that you can just kind of tuck in with all of your stamping. So, of course, all of those have a coordinating die set. This just makes everything a lot easier in terms of layering and creating kind of grouped focal elements on a card. Also say, hang on a second, that, of course, Altenew always gives you the layering guide on here. So I'm going to have the layering guide out and ready for the stamping that I'm going to be showing you today. But let me just scroll down quickly, make sure that I don't miss anything. And just to say another big hello to everybody who's joining us. So that is what we're going to be playing with the most today. I do have another die set that you'll see me use on one of the projects. It's the Signature Words die, and this is a die set that I use so often. I really don't put it away. I use this quite a lot, and I'm using it on one of the cards that I'll show you today. So with our layering, I'm going to do one card that is the classic kind of ink layering technique, and then some other ones that are using the metallic watercolors. And I wanted to use the metallic watercolors because I wanted to stamp and emboss this onto black cardstock, and then the metallics show up really well. So I'll just give a quick preview of what we'll be looking at today. This is kind of the classic how you would first of all think to use the layering set. So you've got all of your layers on here. The leaves are layered, a nice spattered background. And then here you can see that nice petite script that comes with the sentiments. So I'll show you how to do that. But then I also want to show you how you can use those metallic watercolors to create a different effect. So I want you to be able to see that there are lots of different options that you can use this collection with. And I've got a couple of other ones here that I will show you too. So if we are ready to go, let me pop us down so that you can see my work surface. Hang on a second. This platform that we use has made some changes. How exciting. So sometimes things are a little surprising. Okay, here we go. So you can see my work surface. Fortunately, not much else that you can see in my work area because everything beyond here is just like, looks like it's about to slide over into a big pile of paper. Hopefully I'm not the only one who's got a bit of a messy craft room. So hands up if you're with me there. Okay, I'm gonna grab my Misty, my stamp positioner here. And I want to show you this. I wanted to demonstrate this flower here. I think this shows up pretty well with all of those blues. And then I'll just kind of talk you through the colors I used for this flower over here too. But let's take a look at the layering process of this. I'm gonna move the die set over, don't need that, and pop in a piece of just white, smooth white cardstock, stamping cardstock. And secure that down into my stamp positioner. Now, I know a lot of you are layering experts, and you've probably done a lot of stamp layering. Altenew is well known for it, but we always get new folks in too, so I don't want to leave anybody out if the term of layering stamps is a little confusing. So essentially what we'll do here is we'll start with our outline image, and we're going to stamp that. I'm going to stamp this with my Obsidian pigment ink. A crisp black ink is going to give you a nice, crisp, bold outline, although you definitely don't have to do black. You can also do heat embossing as well. Now these are all numbered on here, which makes it really nice. So this is A1, this is A2, we have A3 here, A4 here, A5 down here. So those are all the layers of this flower. We'll get some cat fur out of the way here too. Why not? And then we also have the same situation going on here with the leaves. Now for the flower centers, you've got some layering possibilities on here as well. And so here you can see like A6, A7, A8. So everything is labeled, which makes it really nice and easy when you're trying to figure, do I use this one first or this one first? So here's what we'll do. I'm going to get this sheet off of here. And I'll start with the outline. Pop that down. And this one I'm going to ink up with my black. The stamp positioner definitely does make it easier with layering because you're going to want to keep everything in place and then stamp on top of it. But it's not a must-have. You can do it. We used to do it in the olden days with a clear acrylic block and aiming it down. Our aim got pretty good. I remember in the olden days watching Tasneem do the very first of the layering stamps, and it was like the most incredible, magical thing. But now we get a little bit easier if you want. Okay, I'm going to pop that back on here. So here I think you can see you could simply color this in. It's a really sweet blossom. You could color this in. You could leave it black and white. You could cut this out and then, layer and do lots of different things with it. So as it is, it's beautiful. We're going to keep going with it though. So I'm going to add in the second layer. And this is where I can start getting out my dye-based inks, my colored inks. And I can start doing some playing. But first I need to pop this down on here. And I'm going to align this right on top of the stamped image. I'm going to do my best here. I'm sitting at an angle, so hopefully I've got this. I'm going to kind of start my orientation with the center and then be looking at some of the lines on here. Now this is where it really comes in handy to have your layering guide. I always have one of these open, like especially the first couple of times that I use a set, just so that I can make sure that I'm aiming things right. Okay, so that's going to be my first layer when I stamp this down. And so when I'm choosing my layers, I really like these little 4Z sets from Altenew, but I'm going to be using Sea Glass for my base layer, then Ocean Waves, then I'm going to go to Dusk, and then Desert Night. So I have this range from very pale to slightly darker. To Desert Night is quite rich and dark. So I'll start with my Sea Glass and ink this all up. And this will kind of create a filler space in here in our first layer of color. Such a nice color, Sea Glass. Okay, so give that a bit of a clean and then come back, put this back so I don't put it somewhere and can't find it again. Then I will come back and do, so that was A1, A2, then I can come to A3. And pull that off. And then instead of doing Sea Glass, I've already got that, I'm going to come to my next color, which is Ocean Waves. So I need to get this positioned here first. Get that aligned. And you can kind of go with the outline of the image as well as some of these any areas too. Sometimes you need to do a little bit of scooching around. Okay, I think I'm good there. And I'll just be inking this up with the Ocean Waves. And then go ahead and pop that down. And so here you can see where that second layer of color and dimension is really coming in there. Okay, so again, same process. I'm just gonna clean that up quickly and then come back to our next layer. Hello to everybody who has joined in. I see Daniel is here. Looks like Belinda and Daniel know each other. How cool. I love it when people who join us know each other already. It's kind of like a fun hangout area for everybody. Okay, so I've done 3 and now I can move on to 4 in my next color. It's nice to see everybody. Nice to see your names scrolling through. So thank you for joining us. And goodness, cat fur, cat fur. This is the fun part of crafting with animals. So they generally boundaries when it comes to a crafting space. And I have 2 cats who basically live in my space. There's one sleeping under my desk right now. She's exhausted from having to hide from the vacuum cleaner today. So she's now in her like 6th hour of sleep. I mean, she's fine, obviously, but she's sleeping under the desk. The other one is just on the other side of the door. So my 2 little rescue kitties. And occasionally I do find some cat fur in among all of my things. Okay, so there's our third layer, and there you can again see that color starting to pop. I always feel this way when I'm working with a new layering stamp set. Well, often just regardless of what stamp set I'm using, but especially the layering ones, that in terms of being a product designer and the person who designs these and can conceptualize the layers, I just think it's incredible. Okay, so that was with dusk. And now my last layer here, this is A5, I will do in my darkest color, which is the desert night. Now, at any point in this layering process, I could stop. I mean, I don't have to do quite all the layers. If I come to a look that I like this would be fine. This would be beautiful as it is. So it really kind of depends on the look you're going for and how much time you have sometimes too. Sometimes just 2 layers is all you can do, and that is totally fine too. Okay, so I've got this, I think, in place. And then this will be our desert night. Ink that up. And then pop this color down. So there you can see the richness and the dimension. And I just think it's so fantastic. This is honestly, it's like magic to me, how easily this comes together. And whether you're an experienced stamper or a new stamper, because they've made it so easy, you get really amazing looks every single time. Okay, so now the situation is we have this innie area and the flower center. Now you could leave this white if you wanted to. You could color it in with another medium if you wanted to, like maybe use a colored pencil or something that might be easy to get into those smaller areas. I'm going to keep on stamping though and show you how to create that center area the way they have the stamps going. So we left off with A5. And so then we're going to go to A6, which is right in the middle. It's the boldest of those kind of funny looking, those 3 funny looking areas. So we have A6, A7, and A8. And I'm going to be using 3 yellows. So I'll start with the citrus burst, again, starting with the lightest color, and then move to maple yellow. And then I'm going to go a little bit orangey with the snapdragon. So that snapdragon is a newer color for me, and I really like it. Now, you can use your MISTI for this. I generally, with small elements like this, I will use a block and a MISTI. So the reason for that is because I just find it easier to sort of aim when I've got a small element on a block. So I'm going to pick up that A6 shape here, put it onto my block, keep everything secured down. This really helps. And then pick up that citrus burst. And this one is pretty easy to position on here. And then just pop that down. Now, I could leave this as it is, of course, can stop at any point, but let's keep going. And I can tell that I got a little bit off center on this one, which is fine. It's kind of like once you have the centerpiece on there, I think it actually is nice to have a little bit of offsetting. So don't worry if it doesn't come out absolutely perfectly. Okay, here's our middle layer. I'm going to use the maple yellow for this one. And come in here, add just a second round of color. These ones I have to make sure to put back because being smaller, they have a tendency to get stuck or lost. So I always need to just take a little extra care with that. Okay, put the lid back on, and then I'm going to come in to finish with our Snapdragon. And pop that color down there. Okay, so now what I can do is pull this out and show you how easily that comes together, how original it looks. And again, really just doesn't take very long at all. Now I can leave this as it is and build my card around it, or I can use the coordinating dies that go along and die cut this, and I will have a piece that looks like this. So now I've got two. The nice thing about this is even though the flower kind of goes in one direction, you can easily get some different looks just by layering and kind of angling them in different directions as well. Super, super easy to do. So let's take another look at that card again, and I can show you a little about it. Let me just scroll down here and double check on any comments or anything that I have missed. Looks like we're doing okay. All right, cool. Strawberry is saying that it's making them a mostly non-floral person totally in love with the stamp set. You know, this is a really fun stamp set, whether you are a floral person or not, because I think it's super useful. That's always the nice thing about Altenew stamps is that they can kind of go for lots of different themes. So here I've got it as a Miss You card. I've got the blue flower here. This flower that I've got up here is using a variety of lighter colors. Let me show you these because this is really cool how you can get some different looks. For that one, I was using Pink Pearl, Coral Berry, Heartbeat, and Rouge. I think Rouge came before Heartbeat. So whether you're going with the blues or the reds or yellows would be really pretty. Combination of like some kind of coffee browns would make a really pretty vintage effect too. So whichever way you're going to have a really nice color combination. And I like having these being a contrast. The flower centers in both of these cases are the same. So it's that citrus, maple, and snapdragon combination. I'm going to move these. Let's move them over here into this other area that doesn't have something on it already. For the rest of this, I'll show you the leaves for the second card that I'm going to demonstrate, but just a couple of other things. The Miss You is stamped just on white cardstock. It's up on some foam tape, and then I've done some splattering back here in the background. The sequins that I glued here are the they are the antique gold sequins. So these come in a fun little jar. And you can I use a toothpick and some white glue to attach those down on there. A little trick with these, when you dab on your glue, and again, I just use a toothpick, put a little dab of white glue, put the sequin down, and then take another block and set it on top. That will flatten the sequins so they lay flat and they don't dry where one is like kind of halfway poking up. And then you can see through it to make sure they don't slide all over. So if you've ever struggled with sequins or had them kind of not gluing properly, that's another way to go. And then, yeah, let's talk about those leaves as well. And I'm going to show you the leaves on this next card that I want to show you. And then we're going to get into the watercolors too. So this card over here, and show you this one. Now this one is using also those beautiful pinks that I just showed you with the pink pearl and the coral berry. I only did 3 layers on this one. And on this one, I only used 1 other layer. So you can kind of mix and match those as well. You don't have to do full colors on all of them. You can do partials as well. So that's what I've done on these. So when I say you can stop anywhere in there, it's quite possible. Now, I'm going to show you the leaf because the leaf layering is another process, but I also want to show you this background. So I discovered that I had a stash of black cards in my stash. I don't know, do you ever just find things in your crafting room that you forgot you had, or you forgot you bought 30 of them? Well, that's what happened to me and my black cardstock. So they're really nice square cards, and I thought I should put these to use, especially with metallic watercolors. So this is the Altenew metallic watercolor set. One for a couple of years, quite a few years actually. I use it a lot. I realize that my aquamarine is like coming to the bottom of the pan. But this is a really nice set, especially if you like working with darker cardstock colors. So either black cardstock, navy, craft color, because they do work so beautifully on a dark surface, on white cardstock as well. So you can see the colors you have here. These labels are ones that I did just so I could remember where things went back into. And you can take these little pans out. So this is the amethyst, and then they are labeled, not by me, but by Altenew on the bottom. So you've got a lot of really nice colors in here, going from warm browns all the way into some cool tones here. The one that I want to show you is this sterling silver down here at the bottom. I'll just take that out and put it to the side. It's nice that you can remove the pans on there. And I'm just going to grab a water brush and get a bit of water in the pan. And when I do this, I want to make sure that the water's not just sitting on top of the paint, but that I really get them well mixed together. Otherwise, I just have a watery brush with a little bit of paint on it. And I'm using a water brush. You could also use your regular paintbrush too. Okay. And then, of course, working on my Altenew craft mat so that I don't get this all over my desk. Then I'm just going to tap this color on here. I can turn this around as well. It's going to look like a starry night. Okay, a little bit more over here. And I'm just holding this perpendicular to the surface and giving it a little tap. So if you had a bad day, this is especially effective therapy. Okay, and then I just need to let this dry. I'm going to set this little guy aside to dry as well. It's also another good tip. When you're taking out these little pans and you put water in them, let this dry before you close up the tin so that it gets a chance to air dry properly. Okay, so then I've got a nice kind of starry night sky here. I'll set this aside, and then let's look at the leaves for our stamp set, and then I'll show you how to put together something quickly with that. Let's see. Okay, so the leaf, let's get another piece of cardstock here. The leaf is this trio or quartet, sorry, right down here. So you've got B1, then you have B2, which is going to be your second layer, B3, and then B4. Okay, so I'll start with the outline first of all. And again, I'm going to start with my obsidian black. Ink that up. And this leaf by itself, this outline leaf by itself, looks, as you can imagine, beautiful just as it is. So you could simply die cut that and away you go. No problem. But we'll add a little bit more to it. Okay, so then I'm going to take the B2, pull that off, And here is once again where I can start doing my ink layering. Now the greens are a lot of fun because there's so many different options that you can use with these. Altenew has some gorgeous green colors. The ones that I'm going to use here, I'm going to start with bamboo for my lightest. And then I'm going to go with forest glades. And no, I'm going to go with frayed leaf, forest glades, and evergreen. Let's see. One of these two I can swap out. I think I'm going to take out the frayed leaf. And so I'll start with my lightest color, which in this case is bamboo. A really pretty bright and light green. It's a really cheerful green. I use this one a lot. So I've got the bamboo, and then let's go to B3, which is the larger one. And at first, my first instinct was to do then B3 and then B2. You can, actually, it doesn't really matter too terribly much on these. You'll just get a slightly different layer depending on, or intensity of your layers, depending on the color that you're using. Okay, got that in place. And then let's do the forest glades, one of my favorites for really for any leaf color. And if you do like to do floral stamping, don't forget you need a green selection to go along for your leaves and petals. So here's my two-tone. Again, I can stop there if I want. But let's add in our last layer, which is B4, which is probably what, if you're new to stamp layering, you probably look at the set and be like, what would I do with that thing? This is what you would do. It can get a little confusing sometimes. Now this one, you need to, I'm going to bring back the package here. And you can see that it's got this curve down here. You need to turn the stamp around when you're stamping with it, so the curve is up on that main portion of the leaf. I think they just needed to fit it in. We've got a lot on the stamp set, so you need to fit it in there somewhere, and sometimes that means you have to turn the stamp around, so it's not quite as intuitive. Okay, and then this one I will do with evergreen. That's a nice dark rich green. And there we go. So there you can see easy dimension and really nice color. So now I mentioned earlier that I was like, ooh, which one, frayed leaf or forest glades? Either one of those works really well for that middle layer. Or if you were doing, remove the bamboo, you could go with these three. So many different combinations that you can do. And there's no right or wrong. Sometimes certain color combinations work better or you like them better than others. And that's also great. It's great to find that out. So here is my leaf. And then if we take a look at that flower that we just did as well. Now let's come back to the spattered cardstock. I think it's just about dry. If I was in a hurry and working on a card and actually going to glue everything down, I could just give that a bit of a zap with the heat tool and speed that dry time up. But let's see here. The other element on the stamp set, as I mentioned, is this little image here in the center. And that's just kind of vase filler, really. When you get a bouquet of flowers, there's some kind of extra flowers in there. And that's what that is. So you've got the stamp and the die for that. And that's just kind of a nice extra thing to sort of pop in. So if I wanted to, just positioning things down, I've got two of my leaf clusters. So even though they're the same leaf set. I've done them slightly differently with the inks, and I can kind of tuck these here to create movement throughout. And then I'll take this little guy and then maybe sort of, let's see, put him, right about there, or maybe even here. No, maybe over here. And then I've got one of the messages that I've stamped from the set, that little miss you, just onto regular cardstock, and could just position that down here. I like to have things overlapping, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be. I kind of have it angled off there. And then there you go. You've got an easy card design. I like the white splatters kind of tying in with the lighter tones in the set. Now this piece is not a layering element, it's just the outline. But if you really wanted to, of course, you could color that in. You could even paint it in with some of the dye-based inks as well. So quick and easy, and a really, I think, fun card design. And a great way to use up your black card blanks if you happen to find a nice stash in there. Okay, so I'm going to set this one aside here. So again, this is the other one that I showed you too. Two different versions here. Put this carefully to one side. Ria, did you see did you get an answer on the greens? So the greens that I used are from Forest Glades and Frayed Leaf, and I believe Evergreen are all in the same set, and then Bamboo is in another green set. So it was Bamboo, Forest Glades, Frayed Leaf, and Evergreen. Alrighty, now let's move on to some heat embossing, shall we? So in this card, I wanted to show you that in addition to the layering, you can also do some really fun and interesting effects using the metallic watercolors. And I did this onto craft cardstock, and I stamped and heat embossed the outline and the outline of the leaf with embossing powder. And this is the copper embossing powder that I'm using. And I'm also going to be using the antique gold pigment ink. So when you are working with embossing powder and you're doing some heat embossing, and I'll demonstrate that as well, normally you would stamp your image with the clear embossing ink. And you could totally do that. But what I always like to get the word out about using other colors of pigment ink as your embossing ink. So if you have some pigment inks on hand, you can always use these as your embossing powder or as your embossing ink. So let me show you this. Okay, I'm going to grab a piece of my craft cardstock, very thick, and pop this down. And I'll pop that down here. And then I'm just going to take the outline of my flower stamp. So I'm not bothering with all of the layers in this case. And I'm going to put this down here. Okay. Close this up, same way we did before, except instead of that obsidian, which is also pigment ink, I'm going to use the antique gold. And the reason for this is, frankly, because I like sharing this little bit of information with people, because sometimes we forget that our pigment ink can also be our embossing ink, but also because this will help create a nice warm tone, and it's a little bit easier sometimes to see on your dark cardstock. This also, of course, works on your white cardstock. Okay, so tap that here, and you can maybe see the outline there. So quickly, what I'm going to do is grab a piece of scrap paper. I'll put this down, and I'm going to take the copper embossing powder and just dump this on here. Now I can be quite generous with all the embossing powder because it'll go back into the jar. tap off any extra. And then I always have my brush on hand to sort of shimmy away any of the embossing powder particles. Sometimes go in areas you don't want them to go. And another way to avoid that is to not handle the surface of your cardstock so much, or like try not to avoid it, try not to handle it very much, because the oils from your hands will naturally go onto the paper cardstock, and that's where that embossing powder will stick. So just try not to, put your hands all over it. Okay, so I'm going to just clean this off, set it aside, and then quickly zap this with my heat tool, and we can see how beautiful it looks when it's heat set. Okay, so again, working over my heat resistant mat, just going to give me a few seconds and we will have a heat set image. Okay, so there we have it. I think you can see. So pretty. Now, the heat and the super thick cardstock have combined to create a really nice wavy effect on here. So what I normally would do after I do all of the heat embossing is just put something heavy on top of this and let it flatten out. I would do this in stages. So the flower first, and then one of the leaves, and then another down here. So in the interest of time, I do have a piece that I've already done all of the embossing on. So I've got the big flower here, and then the leaf outline kind of going off on either side here as well. Okay, so now we can get out our beautiful watercolors. And in this case, what I'm going to do is focus with the flower on these warm tones that I have here. So garnet, copper, citrine, and bronze. And then I can just kind of mix and match with those colors. So clean off my brush a bit. And I'm going to start with the citrine, which is this color here. Again, I want to make sure that I'm getting enough water in here that is well mixed with the paint so that it's actually mixed. It's not just sitting on top. Now, because the embossing is going to create a bit of a raised edge, kind of holds in that watery medium, which is one reason I often suggest this technique of embossing and then painting in an image to people who either have not done painting for a while, like maybe they've done it in their younger years, they just haven't done it for a while, or just don't do a whole lot of painting. So if you're new to painting in images, this is a great way to do it, because you will have a little bit of guidance or guideline with those raised edges, so that watery medium isn't going straight out. And you can go over those lines as well. It's not a big deal if you go over them, because it will form a resist. So I'm not working on watercolor cardstock for this, but I did want to make sure that I had a nice sturdy cardstock. Okay, so that was the citrine. Let's come in with a bit of copper here as well. Maybe kind of hint that around the folds of the petals. Again, just add in a little bit of shadowing, edging around here. You can really just kind of play with these. Sort of can't go wrong with the colors. And we'll do a bit of garnet too. These paints are super long lasting. It's one thing I really have enjoyed about them. Even with as many of these demos as I do and as many classes that I teach for Altenew, they have lasted me a long time. Okay. And just add some little highlights in here. Okay, so I'm going to blend this out just a little bit, and then I'll return to that when it's starting to dry a little bit. But now I'll come over to the leaves, and in this case I'm going to, of course, go more towards the greens, the jade, and aqua. What aqua I still have left. It's one of my favorite colors from the set. And again, just pop in a bit of color. Now, if you are somebody who likes to do a lot of shading and shadowing and you're quite experienced with painting, this can also be a lot of fun too. So you've got lots of room to grow, just depending on which look you like and how much time you have. That's the other thing, of course. It's different for all of us, and it's kind of different every time too, isn't it? Okay. So I'm not really overdoing it with the water, just enough to keep it moving. Okay. I think I need a little bit more over here. Okay. And just up to the tip there. So I think you can see, just as I'm angling this, that beautiful soft shine of the embossing powder and also those gorgeous metallics. Now I'm going to put this brush aside and I'll show you again the original card. So now this is all dry, and even though I use the same colors, giving a slightly different effect. So definitely have some more of those darker colors in there. So again, you can really play with this. Now the congrats is, of course, from the signature words die, the one that I love so much, which has the hello, thanks, and congrats little dies, die cut words on there. And in this case, I die cut the word and then pressed over it with embossing ink and heat set it with that copper embossing powder. So everything is coordinating. And I did a little bit of inking around the outside edge using that gold, the antique gold ink pad. So to do that, really easy. You grab your ink pad and then just kind of shuffle it along the edges. It's going to give you a nice polished, finished edge, but also quite a subtle edge too. So that's what I've done around the outside of that. And then just put it down onto the front of a white card. So quite a different look that you can get in between that and this, right? Which is the fun part, I think, of the stamp set. Now, because this is still wet, I'm going to move it carefully aside. And I have one more card that I also wanted to share with you, because once I got going with the craft cardstock and the black cardstock, I thought, ooh, let's take a look and see how this will look in combination with the pure white embossing powder. So I had to give this a try, and I have to say I'm looking at it on the screen. I don't think it looks that great on the screen, actually, but it looks really nice in person. So sometimes what it looks like when you're looking at it on the computer screen is maybe not the same as in real life. But I thought it was a lot of fun and wanted to show it to you because it's another cool way to experiment with a couple of these different supplies. So I went ahead and heat embossed just as we did before, the outline and then also the leaves going out in different directions. So again, what I would suggest is you stamp the flower in embossing ink. And in this case, I used the regular embossing ink. And then cover it with that pure white embossing powder, heat set it, and then come back and do the leaves on either side. I don't try and do it all in one go because I'm not that fast between all of the different, like keeping it all level and nothing kind of whisking off the edges. So once you've got that, then you can paint away. Now for this one, I was using mostly the blues, and I didn't really differentiate hugely between the flower and the leaves, but let's just take a look. I know we're also coming on to almost onto an hour, so I don't want to take too much of your time today. Sarah's stamping hour. It's not Sarah's stamping afternoon, although sometimes I would wish for that. I think we could have a good time together. But alas, just an hour for us today. Okay, so I'm going to pick up some of the topaz and come in here with a bit of that. Now that is that really nice, dark, rich jewel tone. Really, really beautiful. And that's got a super rich sort of luster to it. Of course, the more water you use, the more diluted the color will be. You also do want to keep in mind if the color is going to be really, really wet, that it can kind of run off of your piece. So do just keep that in mind. You want to kind of keep some control over take control over your watercolor moving around on your cardstock. But even if it goes outside the lines, all is not lost. Okay, so, ooh, this is just really pretty, bright and pretty. That blue is gorgeous. It's like a peacock blue. And I can come back with a little less water this time and then just touch this one up. Ooh, I quite like this. Let me show you. So there we go with that. Now I'm going to let this dry before I fiddle with it, if I fiddle with it anymore. And let's bring in some of the aquamarine and do something with these leaves over here. And I like using a water brush for this, even though I'm not using the water brush the way it was intended to be used, like by squeezing out water from the barrel. I just use it as a paintbrush, but I like it because the plastic doesn't get damaged as much as a wooden paintbrush handle does. And it's just quite practical. I also teach an after-school art club at the local elementary school, and the kids use brushes a lot, and they're not as careful with them as adults are sometimes, or as I would like them to be sometimes. So it's sort of an indestructible tool. That's what I have them use. And they stay and they stay and they stay. Whereas sometimes the wooden brushes can get damaged, or the wood on them can get a little bit soft. But you can unscrew the barrel of this and actually squeeze water through as it was intended. So, okay, there's my aquamarine, and then I'll just kind of finish off the center here. Just give a little bit of color in here too. Sort of blend that a little bit as well. So here we go. Okay. I'm going to hold it carefully because that's also still a bit wet. But that's another option for you. Now, with this card, I used a lot more of the, what was I using on there? I was using a lot more of the aquamarine in the flower itself. This is just that straight topaz. So again, you can get some really different looks on this, which is a lot of fun. Quick and easy to do too. And yeah, just a great time playing with those. Now here I've also done some more spattering, as you can see, with the sterling silver paint, and a lot of fun to do with that as well. Alrighty, so that is going to wrap us up. We just have a couple more minutes to go, and I want to show you just quickly before we finish, just one more go around. It's been an hour, I can't believe it. It's been a lot of fun. Okay, so set aside the paints for a second. That one's still wet. Put this one here. This was our very first card. Remember that from way back when. And again, doing that simple layering on there. Another way that you can do some layering is to skip a couple of layers. So don't feel like you have to do them all if you want to go for a different look on there. So that's what I've done here. So go for the full color or make your own decisions. And then don't forget you can use just the outlines on here too, and do some really pretty metallic work, either on craft cardstock, dark blue cardstock, black cardstock. Quite a lot that you can do with those. Alrighty, so I am going to flip up the camera again so I can say goodbye to you in person as we are wrapping up our hour today. Here we go. A big, huge thank you to everybody for joining us today. It's really been a lot of fun, and I hope you have had a good time too. I'll whiz through carefully, quickly again, what we've been playing with. It was the Fresh Bloom set, the layering set, if you want it to be a layering set, or the outline set, if you want it to be an outline set. And I did also use the coordinating die set, which is going to give you the option to do things like this, where you're stacking and layering. And I've got these up on, no, I don't have them on foam tape on this one. I do on this one. This one's up on some foam tape. So you can do some layering. I've got the sentiment on foam tape as well. And of course, you can also just use the outline on here. This die is from our signature words dies, that handy little set. And of course, besides all of the beautiful ink colors that I was using, I was also working with the metallic watercolor set. Beautiful on white cardstock. So I didn't show that here, but I have in the past. It's gorgeous on white cardstock or light cardstock, but it is also really pretty. It's not quite dry, but I want to just hold it up again. It's really effective on black or dark blue or even a craft cardstock. So hopefully this has been interesting and inspiring for you. We've got one more minute before we will wrap things up, and you still have a chance to share while we are live. And the lovely Roxanne will select a winner from the pool of people who have done that. So a big thank you to everybody for joining us today. I'm teaching a couple of Alta New classes next week, the week after, and then the week after that, I will be back here again for another live. So I hope to see you in class or on another live. And hopefully soon, at some point, we may even be able to see each other in person, which would be fantastic. So a big, big thank you, everybody, and good night to you all. Take care, and I'll see you again next time.